Hey everyone, and welcome back. It's me. Today we're going to talk about the Brotherhood of Light. Let's get started. The Brotherhood of Light, Deng Guang Jiao Tuan Tokokyodan, is an organization formed by knights. Their main objective consists to remove the forces of darkness that plague Europe in the Lords of Shadow series. Their signature weapon was the combat cross, which the origins of were largely unknown. But what was known was that many of the additions to these weapons were made on the orders of chief artisan and alchemist. Rinaldo Gandolfi, although certain designs that he included were rejected by the elders of the Brotherhood. Many copies of it were made as the original one Gandolfi created and worked upon, the vampire killer, was lost when Gabriel crushed and left its pieces in the underworld. They also use unique sub-weapons such as the silver daggers, boomerangs, and holy water. The Brotherhood of Light was an order of knights founded centuries ago by three great warriors, Zobek, Carmilla, and Cornell. These idealistic warriors were dedicated to serving God, for it was their sole purpose, and as such, the order itself was tasked with combating the forces of evil. At an unknown time, they fought the sovereign of the elemental plane of darkness known as the Forgotten One. This powerful demon was summoned by the Bernhard family, but broke free from their control and had to be stopped. During their battle with the creature, the founders combined their powers to create a dimensional rift to imprison the Forgotten One within the center of the Bernhard castle. For decades, the three founders fought fiercely against the minions and spawn of Satan, until finally they tipped the balance in heaven's favor. Their sheer commitment to their crusade led to them uncovering in their studies the location of three sacred sites, where the power of God converged so immensely that they each created a bridge between the spiritual and physical planes. Using this power, the founders purified themselves and abandoned their physical bodies, becoming nigh omnipotent spirits whose power was second only to God himself. Unknown to them and many others, the bodies they left behind weren't simply devoid of souls, but were instead consumed by their darker sides. Thus, the founders inadvertently created the Lords of Shadow, who rose to power and plagued the lands with their evil. Sometime later, the link between heaven and earth started to grow weak for unknown reasons. The Brotherhood attempted to stop the end of days by defeating the Lords of Shadow, and hoped to discover the one who cast the spell that separated heaven from earth and released the forces of hell. However, many knights of the order died throughout Europe in an attempt to discover and defeat that evil. This led to the Brotherhood consulting an ancient prophecy which spoke of a warrior of light who would be sent into the domains of the Lords of Shadow and end their reign of terror. Thus, they selected one of their own, a warrior named Gabriel Belmont. Gabriel was eventually successful in his quest, but ended up becoming a vampire, obtaining astounding powers from the Forgotten One, and started referring to himself as Dracul, meaning the dragon. As an insurance policy, the Brotherhood hid and raised Gabriel's son, Trevor Belmont, who later started a journey to defeat his demonic father. Only after Trevor became an adult did the Brotherhood send him alone after his father, Gabriel Belmont, now known as Dracula, armed with a combat cross, while giving him only a basic idea of his father and leaving out the parts where both they and the Lords of Shadows had manipulated him. Only when Trevor was on the verge of death did he and his father realize the full details of their relationship. After seemingly failing to revive his son, Dracula turned his rage on the Brotherhood and sent an army of lycanthropes to crush their headquarters, the only survivor being Trevor's son and Gabriel's grandson, Simon Belmont. Even with the loss of Trevor and the destruction of their forces to Dracula's Lycan army, the Brotherhood still sent many of their warriors into Dracula's territory over the years, although none were ever successful, as Simon and Alucard would find their corpses while going through the castle. In Lords of Shadow 2, taking place 500 years after their failure with Trevor, temporary defeat at Simon and Alucard's hands, and Dracula's resurgence and continued war. The Brotherhood attacks Dracula's castle with a massive army of over 500,000 soldiers and many siege weapons, led by their leader Roland de Roncesvalles the Paladin, and joined by their secret weapon, the massive siege titan. Sadly, the attack is a disaster, with the titan personally destroyed by Dracula, and Roland failing to kill Dracula in a suicidal prayer attack that only succeeded in wiping out the Brotherhood army. After the Brotherhood was crushed, they hunted down and recruited the descendants of Simon Belmont into the Brotherhood, which led to their rising through the ranks to become their leaders. The Belmonts led the Brotherhood into the 21st century, where the final Belmont, Victor, aided the Brotherhood's age-old enemy Dracula by luring out the second of Satan's acolytes, Nergal Meslamstea, sacrificing his life in the process. Also in the castle segments, the Brotherhood appears as enemies claiming to have invaded and conquered the castle in Dracula's absence. However, along with the castle, they are only manifestations of Dracula's tortured mind. The Brotherhood of Light has been around for quite a while, as they were around since the time of Zobek and Cornell. They wore white armor and used a variety of holy weapons. They also seemed to be very holy and very pious people, as they were somewhat devout of the Lord. Their main role is to fight against the servants of Satan and prevent them from doing any more harm to humanity. Over the years, the Brotherhood would also come across humans who turned into demons and vampires and would also slay them. They've also been known to manipulate people in order to achieve their goal. An example of this was when they found the first covetous, Desire, and manipulated her into helping them resurrect her brother. They also seemed to be very intelligent people, as they knew that Dracula was plotting something big before the events of Lords of Shadow 2. And during the siege of Dracula's castle, they were able to create a device that could drain the blood from every living person in the castle, which also includes vampires. The Brotherhood seems to be an extremely powerful organization, as they were able to raise an entire army of over 500,000 soldiers in order to defeat Dracula once and for all. They also had many holy relics and weapons stored in their headquarters, such as the Holy Sword and countless other crossbows. Although they might not be as numerous as they were in the past, they're still a powerful organization, even if they don't show it. The vast majority of the Brotherhood members seen in Lords of Shadow 2 are actually just minor foot soldiers, wearing dark-colored versions of the classic white armor worn by the Order's core members. These soldiers are relatively weak, though better equipped than your typical medieval peasant or soldier, as they were armed with swords, shields, maces, and crossbows, in addition to having access to holy water. Sub-weapons, they were also trained in the use of the crossbows and seemed to know how to fight, as they were able to hold off hordes of Dracula's soldiers for some time. Though disciplined and fanatically devoted to the ideals of the Order, they were ultimately no match for Dracula and his army, proving to be rather expendable pawns in the grand scheme of things. Speaking of things in the grand scheme of things, there are many similarities between the Brotherhood and the Covenant of the Elder, especially with their goals but also their methods. Both groups were willing to make deals with demons in order to achieve their goals. Both groups also were heavily armed and trained, but neither group were successful in defeating their main enemies. Both groups also had a strong belief in their cause, and both groups also had a high-ranking system. One of the most iconic leaders of the Brotherhood of Light was undoubtedly Roland de Roncesvalles the Paladin, the leader of the Brotherhood in Lords of Shadow 2. He was a brave and honorable knight who was completely devoted to the will of God and eliminating the forces of darkness that plagued the world. He was also highly intelligent and charismatic, being able to lead a massive army into battle against Dracula and his forces. However, he was ultimately unsuccessful in his mission, being killed by Dracula while trying to deliver a final blow to him. Despite his failure, Roland remained a valiant and noble character who exemplified the ideals of the Brotherhood of Light. That's it for today's video. If you like what my team and I are doing, you can support us through the link in the description. Thank you. Bye.